Hey everybody, welcome back. This is our second video about France, and we just did the video about the long-term stay visa process for France, how simple it is, how it's so exciting to have the opportunity to go live in France, and everything was so low as far as the requirements, as cost to live there, what you need financially. If you haven't seen the video, please go back and check out video one after you check out this one. This video, we're going to talk about the requirements for the healthcare coverage to obtain a visa to stay for a year in France, and as well as the medical situation going forward. And we have with us today Fabian again. And if you need health insurance, if you're going abroad, make sure you go to warrenjulietravel.com and you can go to the healthcare tab, and you'll see the link to go to Fabian's location so you can get the French insurance that you need when you're going to France with a long-term stay visa, and will meet the requirements that you need. And if you're going somewhere else in the world, I've got other companies there that I represent as well. And if you need healthcare coverage on other countries, let me know. We do the worldwide thing. But let's welcome back Fabian.
Hello. Hi again, Warren and Julie.
Hey,
So,
so Fabian, we were having such a great conversation on the whole long-term stay process. But can you expound on the requirement of medical coverage in France, and also about the government insurance and the process as things go along if you're going to be in France long term?
to simplify everything, to apply for a French long-term, so we're talking about the 12-month visa here. So a French long-term visa, you require medical insurance. France wants you to have a policy without an excess or a deductible, 30,000 euros worth of coverage, in and outpatient benefits. And in theory, you're not supposed to have exclusions, but that's also something we can talk about. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. So it's in theory simple, although there are a lot of pit traps. For example, a lot of policies out there could meet the requirements on paper, like maybe the certificate of insurance would get you through the guides, and you've had friends who've used that, and was fine and fantastic and very cheap. But the bottom line here is that you also need, this is kind of an undisclosed requirement, because you're supposed to have a policy that is valid in your country of residence. And unfortunately, travel insurance doesn't check that box. So a lot of policies out there that are being used with visa applications might not be compliant because of that. So, well, obviously, to avoid the headaches, like if I do a bit of a sales pitch, like we have the cheapest policies. We refund the difference if we find a cheaper plan. We offer 100% money back guarantee on visa applications, like on the policy, if your visa gets denied, even for another reason than the insurance. But to get back to the requirements, why am I insisting on that residency thing? It's because, unfortunately, I have the case. I hear the story often, and like as early as last month, a lady came back to us, and she had a claim. At first was accepted, was a US insurer, and then eventually they asked the question, like, where do you live? And she was like, well, I'm in France now. I said, oh, you're a French resident. So claim was denied, and it was a massive bill. So I'm not playing the fear-mongering card here. It's just to say, it doesn't mean you'll have to spend thousands of bucks, because on top of that, France is fairly cheap when it comes to medical cares. So you can get very good deals and very cheap policies, but it's just important to make sure that you meet the obvious requirements and kind of the undisclosed ones, because these ones aren't as obvious. But all that being said, it boils down to the layout of the certificate of insurance. I mentioned the exclusions, for example, like you're not supposed to have medical exclusions. At the end of the day, it's between you and what you're comfortable with, because if you get a policy that doesn't mention any kind of medical exclusions on its certificate of insurance, even if some are applied, well, the consulate will be happy with that. So it's all about dressing the bride.
I deal with a lot of different insurance programs out there, and I know that some of them I can do a zero deductible with, some that I can't. But yeah, I think there could be some confusion, so I want to make sure that this is clear. When you're applying for some of the coverages, like if you're going through one of my links on any of the companies there, a lot of times you'll be in the United States and it'll ask you your country of residence. It's still the United States, so you put that in there. So once you go to France and you become a resident over there, that is where I guess there's a fly in the ointment for the insurance carrier. So as long as you're over there traveling and you're living there under certain plans, that's fine. We do have some coverages that have are made for expats, but they're typically, and that's for visas and locations, other places in the world. But there's typically some sort of a co-insurance or potential out-of-pocket, some sort of deductible that goes into them. So what might be good for Ecuador, or good for Germany, or good for Serbia in the programs that we are offering through our typical channels, it gives me reason for a little bit of pause when we're dealing with France. And so that's why, I want to make sure we are providing the right coverage for the right place at the right time, and that nothing is slipping through the cracks unintentionally. If somebody were to come back to the United States for a couple months to visit family, or they're going to travel elsewhere in Europe, will the policy that they get in France cover them back in the States or Australia or Great Britain, or in if it's a temporary visit back to another country?
Depends on what kind of plan they get, but usually our plans would cover them all across the Schengen area, because that's kind of by default. Like a visa, as I was saying, actually, a visa allows you to travel all across the Schengen area freely without the limits of the 90 days allowance anymore. So that's why you're covered all across this zone. That's kind of the usual type of policy. Saying my job, I would consider, is to educate people as to what are the theoretical requirements. That's 100% compliant, and then you cert and you'll get through the gates. But obviously, there are tons of other options, and there's more than one way to go, as we put it. So, and this is only for the visa, though. There's kind of the same requirements for, it's only for the 1-year visa. For 6-month visas, the options becomes much wider. Like travel insurance is accepted for 6-month visa. Like if you come from the UK, you can use the GEEC for a 6-month visa. So then, it depends on the type of visa you're applying for, and also the type of residency permit, because then if you're no longer applying for a visa, but then are switching into a residency permit, then also, and sometimes if you're the spouse of an EU citizen, you may skip the visa and apply straight for a residency permit as well. So then you still have the requirement, but it's much more flexible, and you have access to broader range of policies. And also once you're part of the system, you will get rid of that pricey from a French perspective. From a US perspective, you'll still think it's cheap. But you can get rid of that pricey medical insurance and switch to something that's very French specific, which we call the mutuelle. The closest English translation would be top-up health insurance, like we're topping up the refunds from the site. After 90 days, like if you have a 1-year visa, you can apply into the French healthcare system, which, by the way, we call social security, but that's not a pension. That's healthcare in France. And actually, if we compare to the UK, we call that CPAM, CPAM, and that's exactly the equivalent of the UK's NHS, so to compare UK and US.
You and your company have helped 600 Americans last year with gaining entry into France, and over 3,000 expats from around the globe.
Yeah.
So you are quite well versed in all scenarios and situations with obtaining residence from basically anywhere in the globe. So while most of our audience, over half is going to be US, we've got Australians, we have British, we have Canadians. You've dealt with people from all over. So I don't want to discourage anybody listening to us that might be sitting in another country outside of the United States or Great Britain, that you've got the answers and the nuances for them. So they can always contact you and reach out through the email I've got on the screen here to find out about coverage and get their questions satisfied.
Yeah, well, as long as you speak English, we've probably dealt with the country you're from. Yeah, we've dealt with 1,200 Americans last year. It's just like 600 being first applicants, like visas.
Okay.
And then another 600 for residency permits. Yeah, so It's because it's more than a third of our 3,000 total. Yeah.
Well, this is why we have you here. We wanted somebody that has all the answers. And, that's what we try to do when we're doing our videos about residency in different countries, is fitting the people that have the answers. And I think we really hit a quality expert by getting you on
Absolutely.
here. So the coverage, that we're able to provide our viewers going through you, it's going to cover them in the 29 Schengen countries. And if they were to cross the Schengen borders, do they have options under their regular coverage, or do they have to have a buy-up option?
So, well, we've created a policy specifically to meet the French visa requirements while it's being the cheapest. So this one would be focused. So that's by far the best seller because it's cheap, it's convenient. As I was saying, we have the 100% money back guarantee and stuff. So it's flexible. And so it's the top seller. This one only covers in the Schengen area. We do have other options to have a wider coverage, including the US or Canada or other countries. But if we're being honest, it's so cheap. France, EU is so cheap. Usually, my advice is to stick with a policy that meets the ball and then to save the money. And then if you need coverage, for example, because also you have to think as a French resident. Like you were saying, for example, if you apply for quotations with US insurers, it's completely fine. But just make sure that's not because you're currently in the US, sitting in the US, and in the process of moving to France, but so you're currently a US resident. When this policy will be in effect, you will be a French resident. So on the country of residence question, you should say France, not US. Because otherwise, when you'll actually move to France, that might void your cover. And very often it does. Unfortunately, as I was saying, these are feedbacks that we hear often. So all that to say, from a French standpoint, just get the French cover, and then you get travel insurance to be covered back in the state, which will be cheap.
Okay, so you can get your travel so you'll get your travel insurance through a French company, and as a French resident, even though you're going back to America as a citizen, you would use your French travel insurance to return back.
So yes, however, not all French policies or EU policies might cover you in your country of nationality. Okay, but so the short answer is yes, not to over complexify things that don't need to be. Yeah, just make sure you ask a question. Do you cover Americans, like US citizens in the US, even if we're no longer residents? So actually as non-resident. Well, so some companies can do that.
There's always somebody that's going to send a message a little confused on something. Because you become a resident of France, it has nothing to do with citizenship. So you're not surrendering your U.S. citizenship to become a French resident. So I want to make sure that is that is clear, because there is always going to be somebody there that will be confused on the terminology.
And well, 100% agree with that. And you're right to emphasize on this, especially because this is a question we're being asked very often. Like, what about French citizenship? Can we apply for this? So first, you can also be dual national. You can apply for French citizenship and keep your US citizenship or your UK citizenship. But also, people think you have to become a French citizen if you want to stay long term. Well, actually, I have clients which have been on French residency permits, the carte de séjour, which is now, they've changed the names, carte de résident permanent, never mind. I have US clients which have been on this for 30 years. So that you don't have to become a French citizen. Well, you can if you want to, but obviously the requirements are a bit harder because there is a language test and there is a civic test, which none of those you'll have to do in most cases if you apply for a residency permit in France. So you can stick with the residency permit pretty much forever.
Then when you qualify for the residency permit that you filed for after your first year there, or before your first year there ends under this visitor long-term stay residency, and you get on the national system, there really isn't a cost then unless you're exceeding a certain dollar amount in income, like a 50,000 in income.
The French system works. It's a bit complex. Actually, most of the French natives don't understand the French healthcare system. We just know it works. Like, we just know we walk into an hospital, that would be for free. We just know we go to the pharmacy or get some X-ray done, that's basically going to be for free. So that's why I'm saying, although I'm happy to explain the system, very often I'll stick to the surface because it's kind of a very complex one. But basically, it's a two-part system. Like you have the national healthcare, and you need to top. Well, you need like pretty much all of the French will top it up, and you need to top it up with what we call a mutual top-up health insurance. When you get those combined, you will get an option free of charge, and most of the time don't even have to pay in advance. So in pretty much everything, including dentistry, glasses, and all that stuff. You mentioned the price of the top-up health insurance is something based on age, has a price tag attached to it. Technically, it's private medical insurance, but we call it a mutual for a reason, because no matter whatever you claim or not, it doesn't influence the premium, no matter the history or not. Like you could have stage 4 cancer, we get you, and you'd get the full benefits right away, because there's no medical questionnaire or exclusions. That's basically the state kind of dictates what should be covered, and then they have to top it up. So it's kind of semi-private, because yeah, technically it's private, but it's the state who dictates the rules and what should be covered or not really the insurer. So that's why we call that a mutual, because it's kind of a mutualistic spirit, or idea. But then on the public bit, which is the national, like the state itself, national healthcare system. So everyone's eligible, everyone, as long as you're a French permanent resident, you are eligible to get into, well, a few exemptions for detached workers. And well, this is France. There's always be an exemption, and someone will tell, oh, no, not in my case. Okay, sure. These are very marginal. So everyone's eligible to the French system, and you can get into the system for free. And actually, you need to be part of the system if you're a French permanent resident. Again, unless you're in very specific situations, but they all employ your working, and therefore it has to do with your employer. So you don't have to worry about that. Getting into the French system is for free, and then all the benefits will be for free. However, as you were saying, Warren, and you're right, depending on the household income, you may have a tax that's separate to national taxes, although it's separate because it's tied to it, but it's not considered a national tax. It's more like a social charge in a way. Like if you're making more than 50,000 euros, it's kind of a threshold, dollars. It's a threshold combined. Actually, if we want to be technical, there's an index called the PAS, Plafond Annuel de la Sécurité Sociale, another acronym, French, we love it. It's 46,000 euros exactly at a minute. If you exceed that threshold as a couple combined, then you may have to pay for French healthcare. Under the threshold, it's going to be for free all across, so 100%. 6.5% of every bit of income you make over the threshold. Okay, so yeah, the example, if we take someone making the six figures, like $100,000 a year, then that guy would actually, that couple for two, that couple will experience, because we're talking combined, not per person. So these people would experience a 3,000 each tax per annum. Yeah.
Okay, so that income would include their Social Security, disability, 401k
every bit of income,
money.
Whatever this is tax liable in France or not. Yeah.
And the 401k money, it wouldn't be the money that's sitting in your account. It's going to be the money that you're withdrawing from the account, to be clear, right? Or dividends that would be coming out into your checking. Not that's sitting inside your brokerage account.
That's it.
Yes.
So that's why, I mean, France sees this a bit differently, in a good way, actually, compared to some countries. So again, first, I'd strongly suggest you speak with a tax lawyer. We have contacts we can put you through. But the general rule in France is that when you're drawing down to your banking or checking account, then it becomes income and you have to declare this. But if you're not, very often, if the money stays into a scheme and doesn't land onto your bank account, that's not considered income, because it's kind of unrealized profit, even though it might be in dollars or euros or whatever. So very often it's not taxable. But again, just to make sure you're not doing anything wrong, speak with a tax lawyer. But France is very generous in that regard. Even like stocks, for example, as long as you don't sell them and they're within an account, so they count as part of your portfolio. Like France will ask, how much assets do you have? But they won't be taxed. You could be a multi-millionaire. We only tax, well, we could tax properties, but not wealth. Like if you have liquid assets, they're not taxable in France.
So if you sold a stock, took a profit, and it stays within that brokerage account and goes and is invested into a new stock, but it does not make it into your bank account, that does not get counted as income, correct?
There's a way to do it, yes. So I'll say theoretically, yes, but you just need to make sure. France is all about planning. You just need to make sure you're doing this in a way that's tax-free. But there's a way. So what I'm saying is there's a way in France
Okay.
for that to happen. Yes.
Okay. Super. But the 30,000 euro policy maximum, if somebody has needs for treatment and if they exceed the 30,000 euro on that first year when they're under the long-term stay, is that then going to be out of pocket, or is there a need for additional coverage above that 30,000? What happens in the
No,
first
yeah, I didn't mention this, but another requirement for the policy, because it's so rarely of use, but is that you need to have repatriation included on your plan. Because yeah, if you've exceeded the amount, or if you prefer to be treated in your country, or if whatever you have was in relation to something that was automatically excluded because that was an ongoing condition, then even if that was something excluded on the terms of the policy, then you can be repatriated into your home country to be treated. That's always an option on the table. So that's part of the plan. However, because I think it's important to disclose that, I've only seen the case once when it exceeded the 30,000 threshold. And I was a lady, 94 years old, which was in a really, really bad shape when she came to France. I had to be hospitalized. She was anemic and had to stay in the hospital for 3 weeks with intensive care, like under assistance and stuff, like life support. And then 3 months in a recovery home. So a massive deal. And I was just slightly above 30, like 32,000. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, yeah, and it's a shocker for a lot of Americans, but cost of healthcare is so much cheaper in Europe. Julie and I, as we slow travel around Europe, we have a policy that has a $2,500 deductible. It would not be the one that would be used for France, mind you. $1 million of coverage, $2,500 deductible, costs us $240 as a couple as we travel around Europe. But that's policy, we're never going to hit that deductible, I don't think. Our small costs that we've incurred for our treatment as we've traveled in different countries is very low. So France is, probably the same way that.
But the consultation with the GP is 25 euros. An X-ray is going to be 70 to 90 euros. Are we talking about like a scan, like
So
proper
it's
scan?
going to be hard to hit your 30,000. Not that it won't happen or can't happen, but it's going to be hard to go over that. If somebody were concerned, do you have policies to ratchet that up to 60,000 or 100,000 euro that you
yeah,
would be able to
well,
offer?
we offer 100,000, by the way. So yeah.
Okay.
I mean, by default, because on top of that, well, it's kind of they've dropped it, but like for a while, like up until mid of last year, in London, New York, and some of the places, they were expecting 100,000 instead of 30,000. Was kind of a random expectation they had, but it's kind of the authority. So that's why we've met this requirement because, well, this basically doesn't cost like, I think for us, kind of inflated the premium like €5 or €6 per annum. It's like nothing. So
this has been another fantastic video with you. I think we've hit all these topics. We're going to be talking about on our next video with you, we're going to talk about transportation in France and the ability of having a vehicle while you're in France. And then the video after that, we'll talk about best places to live and where people and expats are going when they go to France. So make sure you subscribe, give the video a like, and hit that bell for notifications so that you're going to be informed when we release the next videos that we have with Fabian, because we're doing a series of 4 videos that will give you so much of the information you need if you want to go live in France full time. So until next time, everybody, have a great day. Ciao.
Thank you. Ciao.